What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 235 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about Magnus Robot Fighter, Volume 1, Metal Mob. This is from the Dark Horse Comics relaunch of the character from the 1960s. Magnus Robot Fighter was originally from a small company called Gold Key, created by Russ Manning. The back of this book described those comics as Tarzan with robots. Then, in the 1990s, Magnus Robot Fighter, as well as Turok, Son of Stone, and Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom, they were acquired by Jim Shooter and some of his partners, and they were eventually merged into the Valiant comic universe of the 1990s. And that is the most that I ever read of Magnus, was those comics from the 90s. And I just read issues here and there. I didn't even read a whole lot of the 1990s Valiant Comics Magnus Robot Fighter. But then the Valiant Comics universe eventually kind of fell apart. The characters who were originally from Gold Key, they were separated from Valiant. Then later, Valiant Comics did their own reboot with the characters who weren't originally from Gold Key. And then Dark Horse Comics did a reboot of some of the characters who originated from Gold Key, like Dr. Solar and Magnus. And then later on, Gold Key actually did a reboot with Dynamite with some of these characters. So this is the Dark Horse reboot of Magnus Robot Fighter. And the premise here is basically it's set in the year 4000. There are robots who peacefully coexist with human beings, except for Q robots. Q robots had a revolution about 20 years before the events of this story. They tried to rise up against humanity. Their revolution failed, and now anyone who sees a Q robot is basically going to try and kill the Q robot. Nobody likes Q robots except, oddly enough, for Magnus Robot Fighter. Magnus Robot Fighter, he fights evil robots, but he is not indiscriminately killing all robots that he sees. He was raised by a Q robot named A1, and he kind of has this sense of compassion towards the robots that nobody else in this book has. And that is both the most interesting thing about this book and also the most frustrating thing about this book. I would say that almost every character in this book is more interesting than Magnus himself. There are characters here who are not very three-dimensional. They're pretty much one-dimensionally portrayed, but then there are some aspects of their backstory that I find very interesting. For example, one of the bad guys, we don't know a whole lot about him, but he acts like he doesn't know a whole lot about the recent history of this world. And I don't know if he's a robot or if he's a time traveler, I don't know. But he acts like he doesn't know what's going on. And yeah, that is a source of exposition for us, but it also makes me a little bit more interested in this bad guy. What's going on with him? Why is he asking this guy about recent history on the Q robots and their rebellion? So even though that guy is just a one-dimensional, mwahaha, I am a mustache-twirling bad guy, I'm more interested in his backstory by the end of this book than I was him as a character at the end of this book, or at the beginning of this book. But a lot of the characters here, Magnus's lady friend, Leisha, I think is her name, she's a very interesting character. Magnus's adopted father, A1, is a very interesting character. There's lots of characters in this book that I am fascinated by. And then you have Magnus himself. I don't understand what makes Magnus tick. At one point we see him fighting robots. He will destroy a robot who is seemingly just there as like a minor thug working for the higher up, and he will just obliterate that robot, but then he will go out of his way to save a Q robot who is being hunted by human beings, and he tells the human beings, I don't care if this is legal, I don't care if everyone on the planet hates Q robots, this is going to stop, you're not going to hunt these guys anymore. He has some kind of moral code, and I would like to know more about what makes that moral code tick. What makes this character run? I want to know more about why is he protecting those robots? Why is he fighting these robots? At the beginning of the book, there are some robots who have killed a few humans because they were looking for one of their own, and Magnus says, I would have helped you guys. All you had to do was ask me, but then you killed all these people searching for this robot, and I can't allow you to do that. He is a superhero, and I just want to know more about why he does what he does, other than A1 trained him to do it. He has a special power that no other human on the planet has, in that from infancy, he was trained to fight robots, and so he can run his hand right through a steel wall, and it won't hurt him. But I want to know why he does this, not, well, he was trained to do it. I don't feel like that's good good enough. I want to know more about this character, so that's good. That's a good thing for this book. But in these 4 issues, I don't feel like I know enough about him here. I was much more interested in Magnus's adopted father and the girl who has a crush on him. I was much more interested in those characters, and even on some level, the minor bad guy who's asking about the history of this world. I'm more interested in them than I am in Magnus because I don't feel like this book gives me enough about him. I want to know why he feels this way about robots. Why is he willing to fight for the safety of robots as well as human beings, especially Q robots who tried to kill all human beings 20 years ago. I want to know more about that. But I really like this world that was put together here. I don't know how much of this is based on the world that was created by Russ Manning in the 1960s and how much of it is based on what was put down in the Valiant Comics universe in the 1990s. But I really like the atmosphere here. I like the world building that they do here. My one complaint is just that I'm not interested enough in the main character of Magnus Robot Fighter, and that's a shame because I like so much else about this book. Overall, would I recommend this book? I would say yeah. If you could find it somewhere, go ahead and get it. If anything, this would give you a good idea if you would like this character in other settings, since there have been multiple versions of Magnus Robot Fighter. So if you like this book, you might like the Russ Manning stuff. I don't know. I haven't read the Russ Manning stuff, but this might be a good indicator of if you like this world presented by other comic book creators. But overall, I think this was like a B-, not a bad book overall. I liked it pretty well. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.